What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. We're going to be talking about the Strangers Chapter 2. This is the second chapter in this trilogy explaining how the strangers became the strangers. And this movie picks up immediately where the last one left off, where you have Madeline Pesh in the hospital after being stabbed by the strangers and being left for dead. Now that the strangers know that she is alive, they are going after her, thus beginning this cat and mouse game. Now, I have not really been all that excited for this movie, mostly because the first chapter was basically a shot-for-shot remake of the original film, and that kind of turned me off. Even though there were a couple of creepy moments in there, it was just stereotypical garbage that I was not really the biggest fan of. So going into this second chapter, I have not been all that excited, but since we had the first chapter being the remake, kind of giving them a launching point to hopefully doing something new and fresh in this world of the strangers, even though I'm not really the biggest fan of what they're doing with this trilogy, with explaining how the strangers became the strangers, because the magic of the first original film, the one from 2008, is the fact that you really didn't know exactly who these strangers were. You didn't know their motivation as to why they're doing it. They just had fun torturing Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman for 90 minutes. That's what made the 2008 film really stand out and really frightening. Nowadays, every villain needs to have an origin story as to how they became who they are. And going into the second chapter, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the first film, I was really hoping that they would be able to have a launching pad in order for them to do something fresh and creative with the next two chapters. And I will give them points. At least this wasn't a shot-for-shot remake of The Strangers Prey at Night or Halloween 2. The original Halloween 2, not the Rob Zombie Halloween 2, where this movie would have taken place in a hospital throughout the entire film and she would just be running around. But thankfully, we only get that for a little bit. So I will give it points that it's not remaking anything. They do try to go in their own direction, and in that state of mind, I will give them points for that. Also, there were a couple of moments in this movie where I did feel the tension a little bit more in here than I did in the first chapter. There is a great sequence with Madeline Pesh and one of the strangers in an ambulance that I thought was one of the best parts of the film. It did have that tension that was missing in the first chapter, and that's really where all my positives end for this movie, because everything about this movie is really frustrating and absolutely messy. This is pretty much the origin story of Tamara, how the name Tamara came to be. And I was not really the biggest fan of exploring that because it just didn't hit as hard as I wanted it to, mostly because it does make me ask questions that I don't even want the answers to. Even though there aren't a lot of stupid ass decisions like there were in the first film, there still are a couple of moments in this movie where Madeline Pesh's character is making some dumbass decisions, especially at the beginning of the film where she's trying to escape from the bagman stranger and just trying to hide everywhere. There is a moment in that first act where it felt like she was teleporting across the room, and it just did not make any sense. There are moments in this movie, especially in the first act, where there are trying to build the tension up with the bagman strangers trying to find Madeline Passion, and he's forcibly opening the curtains. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to build up that suspense in order for the strangers not to find her. But the issue with that sequence is the fact that you know that she's not behind any of those curtains. So it loses a lot of that tension, and there are moments like that just take away from everything because you know exactly what's going on, and it's just building up the tension for the strangers so it can be a fake out for them. And God bless Madison Pesh, because she is doing the very best that she possibly can with the material that she is given, and she is really the best part about this movie. But 90% of this movie is just a cat and mouse game that just goes on forever. There were moments in here where I was just waiting for the movie to be over because it was just getting exhausting just watching Madeline Pesh run through the woods and the strangers trying to find her. And there are times in here where they try to give you the red herrings of maybe these are the strangers, maybe they're not, something like that. And it would have been really effective if I gave an ounce of shit of what was going on. You really don't care about anything that's really going on. For the first 5 minutes, watching a chase scene is fun and all, and it's perfect, but the fact that they stretch it out for almost 90 minutes and it's non-stop running, you do get some kills in here, but none of those are even effective because they are mostly off screen and you just see the aftermath of the kills. You don't get to see the kills happen down. It's like the 2014 Godzilla where you see Godzilla, but you don't see Godzilla doing Godzilla shit. In this movie, it's pretty much the exact same thing. You see the strangers, you just don't see the strangers doing strangers shit. That's really the biggest issue that I have with the first film and with this film. It's the fact that you really don't give a shit about anything going on, and you really don't know why they're making a trilogy out of here. I don't see where they're going. Now, there is a teaser mid credits of what's going to be explored in chapter 3, and I think I like where that is going. I just don't care about it because I think what is happening in chapter 3 is kind of what I wish happened at the end of chapter 1. And speaking of trailers, half of the scenes in the trailers aren't even in the movie. Like, you have the opening sequence in the trailer where you have Richard Blake in the diner that we see in the first film, and you have the waitress asking him about the couple that got stabbed in the first film. Well, you do get a scene of Richard Blake in the diner talking to his comrade. It's not at night, it's at day, and the dialogue is completely different. You also get a bit of a dialogue from Madeline Pesh in the trailer where she's talking about how this whole thing is a ritual. That whole dialogue is not in the movie. The shot of the bagman taking off this mask is not in the movie at all. This movie also had reshoots because everybody guessed who the strangers were. I'm not sure if they went back and reshot who the original strangers were supposed to be and then switched them out. I've seen a lot of guesses as to who the strangers are, and this movie pretty much confirms at least one of them. So while I give it its flowers for having some moments of tension and trying to do its own thing, trying to go in its own direction and not be a copycat of what happened before, it still needs a lot of improvement, and most of it has to do with how they're handling the characters, how they're handling the kills, and how they're going to be finishing this trilogy off. From the teaser of chapter 3 and the direction it might be going in, it looks interesting. I'm just really not all that interested in chapter 3, even though I'm probably going to be there day 1 just because I am a completist and I want to see exactly what the whole vision is. Maybe by chapter 3 we will be able to see the whole vision and say, okay, now I can see what you were trying to do. I get it. On your wavelength. But so far, I am not. This movie wasn't the best, and I can't really recommend this movie. Maybe you'll have fun with it on streaming, but overall, it's just one that you can absolutely just skip and not watch at all. But those are my thoughts on The Strangers Chapter 2. Let me know down in the comments if this is a movie that you've seen or you have no interest in. Drop those thoughts in the comments below, and we'll catch you guys for the next video.